shit, is that Jigsaw? Oh lord. Let me see. Oh shit. I'll be here in 1 second. Hmm. Oh lord. Let me see. Alright. I'll be here in 1 second. Good God Almighty. Oh, I see this big Jigsaw up in the chat. Where they at? Where they at? Boom. Out here. Shout outs to Jigsaw. What do we got here? This looks like the Good God Almighty. Ah, son of a bitch. Jigsaw up in the chat. Where they at? Where they at? Boom. Out here. Shout outs to Jigsaw. What do we got here? This looks like the Good God Almighty. Ah, son of a bitch. Up in the chat. Where they at? Alright. There we fucking go. That's a little bit better. Check 1 2. Yeah, I'm hearing a serious buzz coming through here. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Huh, yeah, some kind of buzz on the line. All right, well, we're just going to have to deal with it for the time being, and I'll try to sort it out a little bit later there. Let me see. Yeah, we moved a bunch of our equipment around. I'm just going to have to redo some of the cabling and so forth. There's Big Jigsaw in the chat. Hold on, that's actually quite irritating. Give me 1 sec. I'm going to see if I can sort that out. All right, let's take a look here. So I don't rightly know. Check 1 2. Oh. Oh, yeah, I fixed. Okay, so it was just a loose connection on one of the wires over here, and now it is fixed. Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad to sort that out there. Yeah, like our channel 4 on the mixer, just the there's like a crimp in the cable there. We got that live troubleshooting happening right here. So shout out to Jigsaw right there, who I believe is going to try and go out with Big PK a little bit later today. Good luck with that, Jigsaw. We tried to set you up with success for all those Toronto Tranny Strangler jokes, but you know, you gotta pitch in too, say some real weird shit to this lady and freak her out. Hell yeah! All right, so chapter 36, a difficult chapter, and one where I think it's we would be remiss if we didn't try to do a reread of this chapter today. Yeah, it's kind of a big long ass chapter, but also somewhat of a pivotal one. And there's a bunch of action in the next chapter. Jigsaw says thanks. For real, man. I hope you managed to break off a piece of that. That lady seems like she is DTF in the worst possible way. But good luck with all that. All right, what do we got here? So it'll be a hot second before we start to get any kind of traction. I'm going to try and throw this on the crafting category of Twitch, just so that people can honestly consider editing to be kind of like a craft in its own thing. But anyhow, let's get down to it. So we're going to do a reread of this chapter, and we'll see if we have time for chapter 37 after this. A bunch of shit goes down in chapter 37, as I recall. So Freya couldn't believe she'd spent all day worrying about a party. Everything was fine. Dan didn't mention the book at all. She only brought $20 worth of chips and soda, but when she arrived, she felt like she was resupplying a fortress after a siege. She got the feeling no one had really expected her to show up, and they all seemed happy she had. For some reason, she thought there would be like 20 people here, but there weren't even 10. She already knew everyone except for Brad. Brad Klein was an intense senior with freckles and curly red hair. He was the palest student at Grayson and felt like he might burst into flames if struck by a wayward sunbeam. He was funny, but it was a biting wit. When he wasn't joking, his face was cold and serious, like Radimir's. Brad was a polite host, but not overly friendly to Freya, which she liked. She could tell he needed to warm up to someone before he was nice to them. Besides Dan and Brad, there were Cameron Kowalski and Tate Green from Krav Maga. Freya was surprised to find Radimir Stitch was there. She wondered who he was friends with in this group. He seemed just as surprised to see her, but she couldn't tell if he was happy about it or not. She noticed he didn't eat any of the chips she'd brought and drank water instead of soda. The others were not so restrained. Freya had worried a little she was overdoing it, but it looked like the snacks she'd brought wouldn't even survive prelims. Brad Klein's basement was a great spot to watch the fights. There was a big sectional couch that made a U around a 100-inch television. Brad's father did something with designing sound for concerts in New York, and there was a serious speaker system. She could feel the pulse of the subwoofers through the leather couch. Everyone seemed a little toned down during the first fight. She wondered if they felt uncomfortable around her. The second fight was terrible. It was a heavyweight bout, and both fighters got gassed in the second round. The rest of the fight was just two fighters hugging it out. The referee even threatened to take points for not engaging. Freya stuck out her tongue and pretended to snore, and that was the signal for everyone to go in. Each of them started trying to outdo each other, jeering at the screen. Cameron Kowalski and Dan Gregulus were the best at it. They started doing exaggerated voices for the lackluster fighters as the men on screen grappled ineffectively. "Take me now, Surus. Right here in this octagon," Cameron mocked. "No, Antonio. No one must know of our forbidden love. Stop this clumsy armbar attempt." "Only if you'll release your rear-naked choke on my heart," Cameron cried back, clutching his chest. "Kiss me, you fool. Don't let him tear us apart," Dan clowned as the referee separated the two exhausted men for the third time. They were ridiculous. Freya couldn't keep from cracking up. Dan caught her eye for a moment and grinned at her. Her cheeks got hot and she turned back to the screen, just as the referee was lifting Surus's arm. Brad Klein groaned that they should... Oh my god. Brad Klein groaned that they should have both lost, and Freya joined the rumble of agreement. More of the preliminary fights went by, and Freya was glad she'd come. When she asked why a referee was warning a fighter about an elbow, Tate explained the rule against 12-6 elbow strikes, which everyone seemed to agree was bullshit. She tried not to ask too many questions. She'd been afraid the action would be too hard to follow, but it was pretty easy, even with the boys drowning out the commentators. They all got excited together when they saw a technique from class. One of the fights on the main card was an Israeli woman Vitko had told them to look out for. Just when Freya was starting to feel really comfortable, a car drove up and 3 girls joined them. Claire Meadows had driven over, with Jeanette Lewis, the captain of the lacrosse team, and Riley Halstead, who was the goalie. Riley had her hair dyed electric blue on one side of her part and hot pink on the other. Claire gave Freya a quick nod when she noticed her, and after everyone greeted each other, the room quickly became a roar of chatter. After everyone greeted each other, the room quickly became a roar of chatter with 3 conversations going on at once. Claire beelined for a spot beside Freya. "Shove over," Claire ordered Tate, who was sitting beside Freya. For a second, Freya hoped Tate would tell Claire to fuck off. Instead, he raised his palms at the group, as if to say, "Are you seeing this?" and scooted over in complete capitulation. A few people chuckled. Freya wondered why he hadn't stood up for himself. She was enjoying chatting with him. While the others were mostly just clowning, Tate had a good eye for the technical aspects of the fights. He called out a lot of dirty moves fighters were getting away with before the announcers did, and he was good at predicting how the judges scored each round. "We're cousins. I get to give him shit," Claire explained, noticing Freya's look. "Did you get in trouble the other day?" "No, he never said anything. Total softy," Freya said, remembering she'd used that term. Claire had an "I told you so" smile. Freya noticed that Claire had a very intense focus. "No, he never said anything. Total softy," Freya said, remembering Claire had used that term. She got an "I told you to" That's not good. No, he never said anything. Total softy, Freya said, remembering Claire had used that term. She got an I told you so smile in return. Claire had a very intense focus when she was talking to someone, like she was shutting out everything else. What happened? Tate asked. Nothing. Hush, Claire shot back, looking annoyed. I had to duck into a bathroom to escape Mr. Forelli before he could talk me to death, Freya explained, tilting her head around Claire to talk to Tate. She didn't like the way Claire was walling him off. Oh my God. I had him last year. He never shuts up, Riley shot in from the other couch. Suddenly, everyone there was echoing in agreement. Another fight had started up on the television, and everyone turned back to it. Claire had never seen MMA before, and she wasn't shy about asking questions. Tate mostly filled her in, and Freya was struck by how differently he spoke. He treated Claire like she was a complete idiot for not knowing, and she teased him right back. A few times the others broke out laughing at them. It made her wonder if this was the real Tate, and he'd just been nice to Freya because he felt sorry for her. All the chips had been wiped out. Jeanette was poking at a bag that was just salt and pretzel dust. Does anybody want to order a pizza or something? She asked. Pizza would be incredible. I'm hungry, Freya answered. How's that even possible? You ate like an entire cow this morning. Did you just call her a cow? Claire spun towards Dan. I didn't say that, Dan protested. I didn't say that, Dan protested. People were turning away from the fight on TV to watch the one brewing on the sofa. She ate the biggest steak I've ever seen at the diner this morning. That's all. Oh, so she can't eat what she wants? I didn't say that. I was impressed, actually. Eating breakfast is impressive to you? Jesus, Claire. Lighten up, Dan trailed, shaking his head, but she kept glaring at him. By about 30 pounds, he finished, mugging at her with an open-mouthed grin. Oh, shit, Cameron cried, and Dan had already flipped over to the back of the couch to escape. Claire was on her feet and running after him. Outside, Brad Klein shouted. Dan darted around the sectional and wrenched the door open, darting up the steps and into the yard. Dan darted around the sectional and wrenched the back door open, dashing up the steps and into the yard. Claire was hurtling after him. She nearly had him as he paused at the door, but soon he was out in the open, and she had no hope of ever catching him. It didn't keep her from trying. They could see 2 sets of legs running past and the windows ringing the basement as the two circled the house. Freya and the others could see 2 sets of legs running past the windows ringing the basement. Running past the windows ringing the basement as the two circled the house. Dan kept slowing down to a trot and letting her almost catch up before he took off again. Maybe you could catch me if you weren't so fat, they heard him call back through the basement door, and she howled back at him, so mad she couldn't even make words, and puffed after him. If she ran like that at practice, we'd win more games, and Jeanette observed, and Riley started cackling. Freya noticed Jeanette's eyes go to Radmir to see if he was laughing, but of course he wasn't. She winced in sympathy. Can you get her to shut up before the neighbors call the police? Brad Klein asked Jeanette. He sounded annoyed. He already sounds annoyed. We don't need to add that into there. They heard the howl rounding the house again. Claire ran past the open door. Her face was almost completely red. Sounds like they might call animal control instead, Tate quipped, and Cameron and Riley roared with laughter until Dan ran down the steps to join them. He wasn't even winded, but he looked uneasy. She just jumped in her car, he said. For a moment, everyone was looking out the window, afraid she was about to ram the house. But instead, they heard her engine roaring, and then it faded away. Wait, did she just fucking drive off? Jeanette asked, standing on her toes to try and see out the window. She was a ride. Why do you have to be such an asshole, Dan? She started that. She's been mad at me for like 2 months. I don't even know why. Freya was about to blurt something out, but she was glad she didn't. Maybe she will come back, Radomir offered. She won't, Tate said, and Jeanette and Riley were both nodding in agreement. I can cover her share of the pay-per-view, Dan offered. I got it. Don't worry, Brad said, sighing at him. Dan returned an apologetic look. That old Gregulous charm, Cameron teased. Seriously, though, are we getting pizza? I'll text her I'm sorry, okay? Dan offered, ignoring Cameron. God, don't. You only make things worse. Just give us a ride home later, Jeanette said. You live all the way in Fairmont, Dan complained. Next time, think before you open your big dumb mouth, Jeanette said. I don't like said there, but I'm not sure. What was she doing to him? Chimed. Yeah, let's just stick with said. Can your car even make it to Fairmont? Brad Klein asked with a grin. I bet he doesn't even have enough gas to get to the end of the block, Riley chimed in. See, this is why I don't like hanging out with lacrosse girls. They gang up on you, Dan said, rolling his eyes at Riley. They can gang up on me anytime they want, Cameron offered. Ooh. Both Riley and Jeanette said in unison, and Can stood up and swept into a deep bow. And Cam stood up and swept into a deep theatrical bow. Freya was just sitting there watching it all happen. How did they do it? Everyone seemed to know everyone. They were all so witty. It seemed effortless to them. Everyone except for Radomir, and he didn't have to be funny. He was a genius. But what was she? Freya felt completely superfluous. Worse than that, if she wasn't here, the drama would have never happened. She wondered if she should just go, her hand thrust into her pocket and closed on the starball. Seriously, I totally wasn't calling you a cow. I'm sorry, Dan said, seeming a little crestfallen. He was doing that thing where someone does something rude and then they overcompensate by being too nice to everyone else. She got the idea this wasn't the first time Claire had made a scene like this. Or that Dan had gone too far. She got the idea this wasn't the first time Claire had made a scene like this. Probably not the first time Dan had gone too far teasing someone either. It's not a big deal. I don't know why she was being a bitch on my behalf, Freya said. I've been running every night. I get really hungry in the morning. What? When did you start running? Are you going to try out for track in the spring? We have a really good crew for cross country this fall. Words were tumbling out of Dan's mouth. He had the same sudden gleam of interest that Radmir did when people brought up dance. No, I just, Vitko told me to try it. I have insomnia. He said just keep running until I was tired. He said to just keep running until I got tired. Does that work? So far, yeah. He's pretty smart. I don't know what he's doing here. He's way too good for this town. He could have like a whole giant school in New York City. They wouldn't have city there. He could have a whole giant school in New York. I bet he's spying on Hidden Kernu for Israel, Cameron said. No, dummy, his wife works there. Tate rolled his eyes. I bet she's spying on Hidden Kernu for Israel, Cameron amended. No one is spying for Israel, except Brad. Except Brad, Tate said. Oh, fuck off, Brad groaned. I don't even like it there. My dad is trying to get me to go to Birthright this summer. I want to go back to New Zealand instead. What's it like there? Jeanette asked. It's so awesome. There are two main islands. The north is full of people, and the south is super rugged and beautiful, Brad began. Pizza, 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 pizza. Cam kept repeating it until everyone could no longer ignore him. They gathered cash for pizza. Freya wanted to kick in, but they wouldn't let her since she'd brought stuff. Freya wanted to kick in, but they wouldn't let her because she'd brought stuff. The prelims ended, and they swapped over to pay-per-view for the main event. The conversation turned into Brad and Jeanette talking about New Zealand across Radomir, while Dan and Cameron were trying their hardest to recruit Freya onto the track team. She just couldn't understand why people who cared who ran faster than who. She couldn't understand why people cared who ran faster than who, but at least they were excited about it. They were both really funny. She wondered why Dan wasn't in drama this year, but she couldn't really ask since she wasn't either. Finally, the fights for pay-per-view started. Everyone's excitement ratcheted up. The first fight was the number 3 and number 5 men's lightweight contenders. The number 2 guy was injured. Whoever won this would get a shot at the title. The fight was nothing like the ones before. The two men launched at each other from the first moment, darting in and out, weaving and dodging. There were more punches thrown in the first 30 seconds than there had been in the entire heavyweight fight. It was almost difficult to follow the action or tell who was winning. The punches seemed to have no impact. Freya glanced around the room and saw everyone's eyes darting at the screen, the television gleaming in their eyes. Radomir was practically transfixed. His jaw dropped as everyone began to roar with excitement. When she looked back to the screen, the fight was over. In the replay, she watched the number 3 fighter feint a kick, and then when the other fighter raised his leg to check it, he leapt up and cracked him with a flying knee, knocking him out cold. Doctors were swarming into the ring as number 3's team rushed in cheering. The victor climbed onto the wall of the octagonal cage and raised his fist to the crowd as sweat rained off him. His footwork is so much better than the other fighter. Everything he does comes from his legs, Radomir said, looking slightly awed. He was a kickboxer before he came to MMA. This is going to be a good card. First round flying knee knockout. Tiger knee. I think it used to say tiger knee in there, and I had to fucking take it out. Maybe the tiger knee moment is later. Shout out to Street Fighter. All them Sagat mains out there. Hell yeah. It's fucking ridiculous. The second fight was even better. It was a women's strawweight fight with Flavia Milovez. The Israeli fighter who Vitko had told him to look out for. The Israeli fighter Vitko had told them to watch. She was fighting former champion Rita Blazek. This fight had much less striking. Milovets was primarily a grappler. She threw a few kicks to keep Blazek guessing, but she was mostly looking for a way in. All her takedown attempts in the first round were stuffed, and Blazek made her pay for all of them. Just before the closing bell, she caught Milovets with the left hook that opened up a big cut above her cheekbone. Midway through the second round, she was bleeding so much they called in the doctor. The doctor scrutinized Milovets for only a few moments before announcing the fight could go on, and between rounds they were slathering globs of Vaseline on the cut. The fight continued into the third round, and Tate was certain she'd lost the first 2 rounds, but told them Blazek needed to watch out, because anything could happen in the third. Blazek was looking tired. Milovets had wobbled her with an elbow to the temple during a failed takedown. In a failed takedown attempt. After a failed takedown attempt. Almost immediately after the start of the round, Milovets caught an ill-timed kick and drove Blazek back across the cage as she hopped on one foot trying to stay upright. Finally, she collapsed, and Milovets seized her moment, locking her up and getting her back. There was a moment where the camera was focused on both of their faces as blood dripped off Milovets' face onto the back of Blazek's head. Blazek had both her hands trying to wrench the arm snaking her neck around her neck free. Wrench free. Blazek had both of her hands trying to wrench free from the arm snaking around her neck, but she didn't have the strength to stop it. With horrid fascination, they all watched Milovets crank down on her neck, her eyes aflame with fury as Blazek's were rolling with desperation. She should tap. She should tap, Tate said, his voice crackling with excitement. His voice cracking. She should tap. She should tap, Tate said, his voice cracking with excitement. The referee rushed in to separate them, but Blazek was unconscious. For a moment, Milovets was looming over her hands clenched into claws, looking like she wanted to finish what she'd started. But then the spell broke. She looked around, seeming almost surprised at the lights and noise surrounding her. The referee was moving her back towards her corner. The doctor was in the cage again, and a hush fell over the crowd. Milovets fell to her knees as they waited to see if Blazek would come around. She almost looks like another person, Dan breathed. There was none of the jubilation from the first fight in Milovets' expression. Pale blue eyes peered out from under a mask of blood. Finally, Blazek came around, but it was a while before she could get up, and she couldn't walk out of the cage without assistance. Why did they let it go on for so long? Jeanette asked. She sounded a little shaken. The ref was right there. It wasn't his fault. Blazek should have tapped, Tate said. They're never the same after they get knocked out like that. They all stared at the screen. The camera kept focusing on Milovetz's haunted expression. The announcers were talking about the fight in a subdued, almost somber tone. Freya looked around the room, fascinated by how people were taking it. Tate's face was tight with sadness. He had been rooting for Blazek. Dan and Cameron looked a bit shaken. For once, they weren't joking. Jeanette and Riley both had queasy expressions. Only Radomir seemed fully awake. He watched the screen with wide-open eyes, electrified by the brush with death. He caught her eye for a moment, then glanced away, looking a little like he'd been caught. 30 years of darkness. Oh, hell yeah. All right, so I thought that the MMA sequence there was like too long and too boring, but honestly, it's like some much-needed action during this pretty wordy fucking scene right there. So I like it, especially since like I know what's going to happen in the next chapter or two. So yeah, I'm like much happier with that than I thought it would be. All right, let me get some water and I'll be right back. Okay. Let me check and see if I notice people on the Discord servers I normally do. Real talk. Oh, I'm glad I checked because I just seen old Random D in Teens for Christ, and I'm begging him for help fixing my shoddy book cover right there. Yeah, if you don't know, Random D's Twitter is at Big Blue Boo. Let me see if it's still there, or maybe that's his Instagram. Big Blue Boo. Yeah, maybe his Instagram. Let's check. No, I can't find, well, this just seems like some crazy woman. But anyhow, Random D had, I'll find it later, but he had like this rad fucking Instagram that had all these geometric forms that he made that were like animated into infinite loops. I thought it was so fucking cool. But hold up. All right, let's, so this is not chapter 35. This is actually chapter 37. I don't know how we got behind 2 fucking chapters, but I'm not super jazzed about having to fix every single one of these. But, you know, it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. Either you can or you can't. Let me see. I kind of like Dan running around the house, and I'm just hearing this crazy broad chasing after him, causing all kinds of commotion. That might be the last time we see Claire Meadows or whatever in the whole chat. Night had fallen outside while they watched the Millivets fight, and a dark mood came with it. When the pizza arrived, they all collectively decided to eat outside. Another fight was about to start, but everyone needed to escape the feeling inside. Another fight was about to start, but everyone needed to escape the unsettled feeling. They ate on paper plates standing around the table in the backyard, bending their slices into V's and teasing each other. The patio furniture was too wet to sit on. Jeanette wouldn't eat hers until she dabbed at it with a wad of napkins to sop up the grease, and Freya saw Dan eyeing her with that animated look he got into before he launched into a joke. But Brad had noticed too. He slid his hand between Dan and Jeanette and shook his head. Jeanette wouldn't eat hers until she dabbed at it with a wad of napkins to sop up the grease. Freya saw Dan eyeing her with that animated look he got before he launched into a joke. Brad noticed too. Brad noticed too. He slid his head between Dan and Jeanette and shook his head, mouthing no. Dan's bottom lip was tight, locking whatever dumb thing he'd meant to say into his mouth. And Freya started giggling at them. Dan grinned at her and shrugged. The other four didn't notice the exchange. It was just something just between them. Tate was asking Riley about the band patches on her jean jacket. She was 18 and went to every punk rock show that came within 100 miles. Cameron, Radomir, and Jeanette were talking about the fall dance, and Jeanette kept looking hopefully at Radomir, who was oblivious. Freya was so glad she wasn't tangled up in any of it. It was interesting to watch from the outside, but she remembered well the awful churning uncertainty she'd felt about Peter last year during Oh, well. It was interesting to watch from the outside, but she remembered the awful churning uncertainty she'd felt about Peter last year during No Exit. What was his last name? Oh my god, how do we have... Peter Burrell, okay. B-E-R-L, okay. I'm doing it. Cool. Oh, actually, this is probably a rewrite chapter because we have to completely rewrite the Malcolm Lewis here. I think he's still just a useless wigger during this whole thing. I'm allowed to say that, by the way. That's our word for us. Hold on, I'm getting a bunch of messages from Chili Boss. But, all right, I think I can read them from here. Subohm Band. Hold on. Shit. So, yeah, I don't know. Why did Subohm fucking ban? What the fuck is going on there? Yeah, I'll have to deal with that later. Why does Chili Boss keep getting banned from fucking everything? I don't know if you can hear me on the stream, but yeah, I gotta finish writing, and then we'll get back to this character. So I can't deal with bans and stuff in the middle of a fucking editing stream. But God, don't get banned by my ops. It's so easy not to get banned by them. Let's see, who did he ban? He just banned Tron and Oh, now this is about fucking salt game type shit. So it looks to me, now I do have to deal with this ban, because, you know, Chili Boss is a patron of the show. It looks like Chili Boss was salty that he got banned from Salt Gang, and then he went into LRH and told Subohm off and said, you can't do anything to me here. And Subohm was like, oh, absolutely, I can. And then Subohm banned him. I'm going to try and make the piece in there after the editing stream. But if anybody here is in LRH right now, could you just let them know? I will deal with the fracas after the editing stream. I want to. I'd like to get a little bit of an edit on this chapter. Oh shit, yeah. Shoutouts also to Monkey, who won the AFK award. We miss you, but I see him in the chat right there, so that's amazing. Okay, let's get back to this. Actually, possibly like too hard of a chapter to really get through. So we're gonna get to the part where, just spoiler, Malcolm Lewis arrives, and then we may pause there. But yeah, this is an important part in the narrative, and I want to like deeply think about what we're gonna do. This is the chapter that's kind of pivotal for the Malcolm Lewis like rewrite. Okay. Yeah, I hope to God like one of you people is, well, they're on the YouTube. Generally, people on the YouTube subscribe. By the way, if you haven't already, y'all, we're like so close to 100 fucking subscribers. Yeah, we'll have to get that to happen here. I hate to take a break just to regulate on fucking chat, but it's easier if you like swoop in on those things off the bat. Okay, so Chili Boss just joined back up, so that's good. All right, you know what? I'll just pause here and deal with my IRC chat room, and I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes. Yeah, I've gone and interceded in the chat room squabble, and I hope that things are going to be okay. It's so dumb. I don't know. Like, those are my friends. I don't want them to get into like a fucking fight over nothing. If they're gonna fight, let's have it be over something, and they deliver their fight in like a rap battle type context. That's what I really want. You know, we have a lot of. So I run this big ass chat room. There's like 300 people in there, and like I've just instituted a bunch of like baffling rules into it. Like, I won't let anybody have a chat bot in there. I want all the text to be from human beings. And if people get into a battle with each other, we have like this whole complicated codo dulo for how it works out. Like, if somebody announces they're ignoring the other person, that person just lost. We encourage people to settle their disputes with diss raps, and then we have like a contest and everything. It's just super fun. Yeah, I have a pretty wild online social circle there, and like then like 10 friends total outside of it. Wah wah. But you know, that's how it is, and that it ain't how it ain't. All right, so night had fallen outside as they watched the Millivets fight, and a dark mood came with it. When the pizza, oh, night doesn't fall out. Okay, because this is November fucking. Let's say this is November 15th. November, yeah, the sun set at 4:06 p.m. You know, like let's do 2029. Oh, well, anyhow, you know, it's not, the Earth is not going to be like that radically, whatever. So one of the things, like once we said that our setting was Maine, because I think when this chapter was written, we didn't even know that this was like set in Maine. And spoiler, like the book may need to get moved out of being set in Maine, just because I'm like so poor at doing like a Maine accent. I can move this to like upstate New York and it'd make a lot more sense. No, that's not what they sound like either. Shout outs to Wee Jungling Kid, or Wee Jingling Kid up there in the chat. I just seen him. But anyhow. Hmm. Mm. The wind rose outside as they watched the Millivets fight, and a dark mood came with it. Yeah, I mean, it made a lot more sense when it was like night falling, but night do not fall when when I need it to, and there's no way that I can. Let me see. What do we have right here? The wind rose outside as they watched the no. A dark root. Yeah, so that was a cool line, but it just, you know, also breaks the fabric of the reality of the story. Yeah, I don't like a dark. You never have to say all collectively, by the way. You know, collectively implies everybody, or does it? No, I would. I think we can in this instance we can, but yeah, it's not a truism that you can always do that. Hold on, I want to see Subohm's truck simulator setup. Oh, that's a gangsta. See, what you think is a steering wheel there is actually a Fifi. Look at that giant bottle of caffeine pills. God damn. I mean, I can't sling stones. Yo, this is like my 8th coffee of the day. That's wild. Oh, shit. So, so some of them says, Chili Boss, I can't really IRC and drive right now. And he linked a picture of his truck simulator game. And then Chili Boss says, some of them says, but I have no clue what the fuck your problem is. But the next time the ban will stick. Call that a truce if you like. And then Chili Boss says, whatever keeps you having that feeling of power, lol, IRC is serious. After I just asked him to not fight during the editing stream. I can't help these people, man. Ego is the fucking mind killer right there. And at the same time, totally necessary for any kind of creative project. So I don't know what to do. But I've been trying to edit this paragraph for like 20 minutes. A bank of clouds swallowed the moon. A bank of clouds swallowed the moon after the Millivets fight, and a dark mood followed. Yeah, so just basically everybody's like a little shook up after this whole thing. I don't think that this is a strong paragraph. And the fact that we're like a little bit floundering on it and I'm like so easily distracted tells me that we should probably stop here. Well, we made an attempt. It's like a very, very short stream. I think we were only here for about like 30 or 40 minutes. But yeah, that's like definitely something to think about is just how much mana I have for this whole situation here. What I might try doing is reading this entire chapter tonight and just kind of sleeping on it and trying to think like, what am I going to do with this chapter tomorrow morning? But yeah, so I've got some other projects that I'm going to work on for the rest of the evening. I'm working on getting like a little intro thing happening for this. It's going to take me a few days to put it together. But I do want to have just like a 2 or 3 minute intro so you guys aren't staring at like that blank screen while I'm dicking around getting everything ready. I need about 2 minutes to get from point A to point B at the very start of the stream as I link this everywhere and start up the recording and everything, and I can make that happen. All right, so for now, I'm Zach ZYZ. Thank you for tuning in and everything, and join me every single morning if you can. Subscribe on YouTube. I would love it. Penis bomb.